Back in the 1960s, cassette tapes were relatively new and had very poor sound quality. The only way you could get good sound quality at home was either on reel-to-reel, but that was no good for portable applications, so they scaled it down, doubled the number of tracks. The 8-track cartridge was born, and it was the standard for mobile playback of music until the cassette tape took over.
Well, this is another old piece of junk from days gone past, an old realistic 8-track player. This one has multiple inputs on the amplifier: tuner, phono, tape, and off. Volume and balance and tone controls. On the back of it, it's got speaker plugs, tuner and phono plugs, and these would be for a ceramic cartridge. Made in Japan, too. So let's pop this one apart. Take a look at what's inside this thing, and then we'll see if it actually will play anything. It's held together by these 4 screws on the bottom. It doesn't even look like this thing's ever been opened up. It may have, but usually when people take these apart, these washers fall off and they don't get them back in exactly the same place that they were from the factory. Okay, the unit will just slide out from the front. Holy smoke, see, the belt is still intact on this thing. That's pretty incredible considering how old this thing is. I'll remove the back covers just so I can show you guys something that you don't see anymore. Yes, they use different size screws for the back cover. I'm curious as to who made this thing for Radio Shack. Could have been Uniden. Uniden made a lot of Radio Craps product. This is what I wanted you guys to see. It has a microscopic, and I do mean microscopic, schematic diagram that is too small for anybody to actually be able to read that schematic. Literally, this has got to be the smallest schematic diagram I've ever seen. Look at the size of this thing. Just a little over, well, 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches high by just a little over 2 3/4 inches total. But that's the paper size. If we actually look at the actual schematic, it's 2 inches from the start to the end. 2 inches by just over 1 inch. That's a 1x2 schematic. Like, why did they even bother? It's not as if anybody's going to be able to read that thing. Not even with a magnifying glass. I took a photo of this so we'll blow it up. But that's, kind of useless. It would have been made a lot more sense to put a full-size copy of the schematic in the owner's manual. Or, put a larger card inside the cabinet if you want it for the serviceman. But having that is kind of useless, but I just think it's kind of funny that they included it. Now, the belt itself is not in that bad a shape. It's actually, the belt is fine. There is some crud on the pulley, and that's what's causing that belt to fluctuate there a bit. What we'll do is we'll clean that off. And I'll do that by turning the unit on and just using something to scrape it with. If I pull up the switch there, you can hear the motor runs. We'll just use something like a flat blade screwdriver to remove the crud that is on this pulley, because there is some crud on the pulley. If we get a shot from a different angle, you'll see what I'm talking about. You see what I mean? So if we turn on the motor by lifting up the contact, And then use our screwdriver here to scrape it off. It's getting better. There actually is a screw here to hold the motor onto the shaft, or the pulley onto the shaft, on the motor shaft. That's what we're hearing. There, that looks a bit better. We'll put the belt back on. I'll turn it inside out so that rubber that hasn't been in contact with the pulley is now in contact. Now it runs nice and smooth and nice and quiet. We'll just check the program button to verify that the head moves through the 4 positions. Track 1, track 2, track 3, track 4. Back to track 1. The head actually even looks fairly clean on this, but we will clean it. And then we'll test this thing and see if it works. I do have some 8-track tapes I can play as well. Easiest way to clean these is with the top off. Get some of my relatively rare isopropanol 99%. I say that because the stores are all sold out of it now due to the whole COVID thing. Everybody's buying it and using it to disinfect things. So the stores are all sold out of the pure stuff. Clean the head, and I'll clean the caps and shaft if I can get at it. There it is. To do that, I'll just turn the motor on. And that's what we got off the head and the caption shaft. On this unit here, it uses plugs for the speakers as opposed to speaker terminals. The outputs are these ones over here. Now, we know that without even looking at the back because these are shielded. So these are going to be the input wires. These are not shielded. So these are going to be the speaker terminals here. Doesn't matter left or right. I'm just going to use some jumpers to connect them to my test speakers, and then we can test this thing and see how it works. Okay, speakers are connected. All controls kind of set to the middle. Volume as well. And we have a classic 8-track tape. Let's see what's on this one here. Oh yes, everybody will remember this one. But will it work? That's the question. All back to the days of the discos. I think this is a song that plays at every wedding I've ever been to. I can't play that for more than a few seconds. The right channel doesn't seem to have quite the fidelity that the left channel does. Try the tone control. Sounds the same. That beat is the same for everything. That's the thing is with discos. The beat was the same. DJs could mix stuff very easily because everything had exactly the same beat. This unit being a playback only device means that the head will become magnetized and does need to be degaussed. We use the little homemade demagnetizing tool and kind of take it into the vicinity of the head to demagnetize it. Here's the bottom side of the mechanism. Here's the track selector solenoid, and there's a little cam here. And whenever you press the track selector button, or whenever the metallic splice goes over the program detection probes at the back, it will apply current to the solenoid and move the head. And this cam, as you can see, makes a quarter of a turn rotation and selects the head. There's program 1, 2, 3, and 4. And if I'm in program 4 and I press this spring, I can actually change the tracks and go even in between tracks if you listen. I get the effect that I'm tuning through the radio dial. This is the sense terminal on the back. When the metallic splice shorts these together, it changes tracks just like that. And that's how the program is changed. An 8-track tape is a continual loop tape. So the end is spliced to the beginning and it just runs in one loop like an old cart machine. And as the tape reaches the end, the splice that splices it back to the beginning passes over these two metallic contacts, completing the circuit. There's a little capacitor on here to stop the inductive kick that will happen when the solenoid opens. That's to prevent causing an arc onto the splice and causing the splice to fail. So if this is missing, it'll spark every time the splice passes over top of the contacts, and that'll eventually cause the splice to fail. Anyway, there's not a heck of a lot to show you guys on this thing. The thing works. It cleans some crap off the pulley. These units here, there's no speed adjustment or anything on the motors. They're actually speed regulated by a mechanical governor inside the motor itself, which is basically two little weights that fly out and brake the motor from going too fast. And that's about it. There's a headphone jack on the front. As you can see, there's resistors on this headphone jack. That's to limit the volume to the headphones itself. There's a couple of them. There's actually 4 resistors. There's 2 big ones and 2 little ones. And that's just to provide the proper load to the amplifier when you're running headphones, because it's designed to go into an 8 ohm load. Most headphones are much higher than 8 ohms, so these resistors make up that load so that the amplifier stays under a correct load. This is a very basic Class B amplifier, very low power. Here's the output transistors right here. They're just regular standard. They're probably germanium, I'm thinking. That's how old this thing is. It could be germanium transistors in here. They're metal case ones with leads on them. So they're probably 2SA or 2SB something. But very low power. This thing's probably only going to put out maybe 1 or 2 watts per channel. But the fact this thing works with all the original capacitors in it, nothing had to be changed on it. This thing works. Gives you an idea of the quality of the units back in the 1970s. And this would be from the 1970s, the early 1970s, I'm going to guess. I wonder if there's any date on this thing at all. We'll blow up that schematic and see, but I don't see any dates on this. Radio Shack number 149.
I don't see. Oops, I don't see any. I don't see any dates on this, but I'm going to guess that this thing's got to be from the early to mid '70s, because that's when 8-track tapes were popular. Was back in the '70s, and by the time we got into the 1980s, they had been completely replaced by cassette tapes. So we know that this thing is old. This thing is very old. Anyway, I'm not going to do anything more on this thing because, as you can hear, even the controls, don't need to be cleaned on it. So that's that. Old, realistic 8-track player. Now, I'm sure somebody out there will want one of these. These things are actually quite collectible these days. I have no idea why anybody would want to collect an 8-track player, but for whatever reason, people like to collect this old junk. So this is going to go back together, and this is going to go into somebody's collection. I don't think I'll have any trouble getting rid of this, because I see 8-track players selling at the antique store, and every time I go in there, he's got different ones, which tells me that people are buying them. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.